everyone. Good morning. My name is Tara Rail. I'm a speech language pathologist located in Northern Colorado, and I'm so glad you're here. Good morning. It is 8 a.m. here, and I'm sure it's early across the board for most of us in attendance right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and get kicked off because I've got a lot of slides I want to get to. I will say this right now. I go quickly. I try not to. I'm from the Midwest, but I do speak quickly. But I will work very hard to leave time at the end in case there's any questions for me, either related to what I talk about today or related to what I do. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. So today I really want to talk about how to navigate this chaos. So I have to start off first with my disclosures, financial and non-financial. I am the creator of the telepractice course. I am not marketing that today. I am not selling it to you today, but I may mention it as an example here or there just to let you know of different types of courses that are available out there for you. Also, I was invited and asked to come give you guys this keynote today. I am a graduate of Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which requires an explanation. It is in the town of Indiana and in the state of Pennsylvania. And really our only claim to fame is that we are the hometown of Jimmy Stewart. A little bit about my experience and how I got where I am today. When I graduated from Pennsylvania, I actually left Pennsylvania and went back to my home state of Illinois. And there I worked in an at-risk preschool in an area of the state that at the time had the last Section 8 housing outside of Chicago. So all of my students were either in foster care, had open DCFS cases, had a parent in jail, teenage parents, things like that. And let me tell you, I am very confident that I learned more from them than those amazing kids ever taught me. After 2 years there, my husband and I made a move to Bay Area, California, where I became the lead SLP for a district's preschool program. A few more years of that, and I honestly got burnt out on being a generalist. For those of us who do work in the schools or have worked in this capacity before, we know what it's like to have to be ready for whatever walks through the door. So I decided I wanted to focus in a little bit more. So I switched jobs and I went to an internationally known clinic that focuses only on social cognition. So the pendulum swag. I went really, really far the other direction. But this is where I actually first started telepractice. We would have students who would come in from international locations for intensive summer programs and then would go back home. So I actually started the clinic's first telepractice remote services in order to make sure that we could continue care during the school year before they would return again for the intensive program in the summer. I liked it. But ask anybody from that time in my life, and my motto at the time was I like it, but I could never do it full time. From there, I actually opened up my own private practice, which was about 75% in person, and it jumped to about 25% telepractice. And again, I love it, but I could never do it full time. Then jump to a move to Northern Colorado. The move to Colorado meant I became a full-time telepractice SLP with clients here in the US and international. I also do online webinars, online conferences like this, and then have my online telepractice course. So I went from I'll never do this full time to now only doing it full time and absolutely loving it. So kind of just an example of how I really do live in this virtual world full time now. Now, quick disclaimer. This is not going to be a how-to telepractice talk. This is not going to give you the nitty-gritties of platforms to use and games to play. This is really going to be a how to manage the chaos. There are many great talks in this conference and available out there on the web for learning the tips and tricks. Today is not going to be kind of that zoomed in picture. We're really going to be doing the big picture today. Okay, let's get started on the good stuff. All right, I'm going to cover 5 key areas today in this talk. First one's going to be about road closed, talking about all the can'ts that we have when it comes to telepractice. Next, we're going to talk about choosing your route. We're actually going to talk about you as the professional and how to make choices that are best for you while also serving those that you serve. We're going to talk about how to get help with that roadside assistance. We're going to talk about how to manage everything out there with the you have arrived. And the final one was a little bit of a piece again about you, about making a U-turn from the route you're on currently. All right, road closed. The one thing I hear a lot across online platforms is can't. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't use that platform. You can't use that game. You can't connect from that device. But we actually are only limited by laws, local, federal, your profession's code of ethics, and your own ingenuity. So before I get further into my talk and before you get further into this conference, my big request is that we kind of set aside those mental barriers and all our preconceived notions of can't. And take some time during this conference, not only to get refreshed and get a ton of new information, but also to dare to think about the possibilities we have with this virtual world that we're in. All right, choosing your route, not the route, not a route. We're going to talk about choosing your route. Now, continuing on that same concept of ingenuity, we're going to take a minute and talk about what you, as the individual, bring to the table in each and every class or lesson or session that you run. So grab a piece of paper and a pen, open up a note on your phone, fire up a Google Doc in another tab on your browser here, and realize I am about to ask you to do something that might be really uncomfortable. It was super uncomfortable the first time I did it. I promise I am not going to ask you to show what you're about to write down with anyone else. This is for your eyes only, but I'd really like you to use this time to get started on this exercise. I've included the next upcoming slide in the documents on the Whova, so you can see it and go back to it and do it again. But if you could pull out that pen and paper, open up that note, however you work best in kind of scribbling down and taking notes. Now I'm going to ask you to take 2 to 3 minutes, and yes, I'm going to start a timer on my phone, but I want you to write down as many answers to the following questions as you can. Spoiler alert, they are all about how good you are at what you do. So see, I told you it might be a little bit uncomfortable. It's not necessarily the way a lot of us think a lot of the time, but it's important to get it written down because this is going to impact not only the rest of the talk for you today, but I'm hoping it can also help you in the sessions ahead in this conference. So as soon as I read off all the questions, I'll kind of start my timer. I'll mute myself, so you're not going to hear me breathing or moving around over here. And then I'll come back on in about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay. So here are the questions. Now, these are all related to identifying your professional strengths. So what do you enjoy about what you do? What do you actually like about your job? What are you proud of in your work? What are some unusual professional skills you have? What do you get complimented on the most, again, professionally? And this one can be super uncomfortable for some. And again, remember, I'm not going to ask you to show this to anybody, but what are you better at than many others around you? All right, I'm going to mute myself and I'll come back in about 2 to 3 minutes. So scribble down as many as you can. And like I said, these questions are available as a download as well, so you can continue to do this. All right, as I mentioned, I have a lot of slides to get through. So if you want to take a quick screenshot of the screen, if you want to take a quick picture, or like I said, this exact same slide is available to download over on the Whova as well. But I want to get moving forward. So I'll give you a split second if anybody else needs to pull up their phone, take a picture, and then we'll keep going. All right. Keep this list close as we continue forward. So don't let it get buried in the other papers and documents on your desk or on your tabletop right now. Because as we get moving forward, I'm going to reference this a few times and ways to think about it as we move forward. Okay, so Tara, why are we doing this? Why are we spending time on this right now at the beginning of the conference? When we don't capitalize on our strengths, we get exhausted and burnt out. It is so important that we not only know our strengths, but that we use them to set up our work life, to work around those strengths. So what could I possibly mean by that? If you are the structural person, if you are the planner, well, then it helps to make sure that you set up time in your schedule to set up your lesson plans for the whole week, for the whole month, with links to the activities and pre-prepped, because that's going to be you working in your strengths and using your time wisely. If your strength is being the fun one, being the sole SLP in a lot of schools I worked in, you know, I was often known as the fun one. Everyone wanted to turn with Miss Tara. But then this is going to be the time where it's important to spend your time finding cool new games to play or ways to integrate their likes. That's going to help you stay energized in your sessions. If your strength is connection, where you really connect with each person in a special way, each client, each student, each person you're working with, finding ways digitally to stay in touch, send small gifts, connect individually, and have individual moments with those students is going to be extremely important for you. And if your strength is how you connect with other professionals socially, if that really, you know, a term we use a lot in the social cog world is if that really fills your bucket, then finding new ways to stay connected or build new connections, even virtually, can be really important to making sure that you've got that time so you're full to then give and pour out to those that you work with. All right, roadside assistance. How do we get help and where do we find help along the road? Okay, March 2020 to present has been about as clear as mud. Okay, and quite frankly, it's left many of us feeling like, you know, dead man walking. So much was thrown at us in such a short time, and we did what we always do best. We stepped up, we set up, and we kept going and going and going and going. So right now, you've already taken the most important step. You're here. So pat yourself on the back and take a sip of that hot beverage while it's still hot and realize that you've taken the perfect first step, learning. So whether you are on mile 0 on this digital journey, or you're more closer to mile maybe 100, don't stop learning. Never stop. Because here's the thing with living in this virtual world like I do. Technology changes fast. The rules for this bizarre year and this ever-evolving system keep changing, just like who our clients are and what they need continues to change. So there are many of us who teach online classes, from introductions to master classes that you could take from home, offline, or even on the go. So go out there, find someone who speaks to you, find them on YouTube, listen to some of their, free talks, see who teaches the way you learn best. Again, who teaches to your strengths, and then take some extra courses or have that in your back pocket. Now, specifically look for ones that give you long-term access to the videos, just like you'll be able to access a lot of these videos, I know, for at least a set of time post this conference. Specifically look for ones that give you that long-term access to the videos, because this will be your emergency roadside assistance when you need a new activity. You can't remember the name of that Chrome plugin, or how to make a Chrome plugin work, or you're having trouble troubleshooting something. So find instructors who teach in a way that really resonates with you, that gets you excited about what you're learning about and keeps you connected. But then make sure that it's someone that you can access those videos and go back. Those one-time online conferences or those one-time short video blips, they're not there when you're having that crisis moment or you're having that last minute moment. And then you're still left trying to find it, because let's be honest, in these conferences and online courses, a lot of information is being thrown at you really rapidly. So you get great notes, but then you go back and sometimes the notes might as well not be in English because you don't remember what you learned, or you don't know what you meant by that abbreviation you put in there, or you didn't write it detailed enough, or there's too many details and you're bogged down, etc. So make sure that someone where you can go back and have that emergency roadside assistance, where you can go back and access those videos as often as you need, rewatch them as many times until it finally clicks, until you've tried it out enough times, that kind of piece. Okay. There are also some fantastic YouTubers out there who share ideas and lesson plans and activities. These are great in an emergency when you have that one student or that group that is struggling, or the plan that you had for that afternoon, you just realized this morning isn't going to work. So it's a great way to grab in a couple new activities or a couple things to help you through the moment. Now, here's my big word to the wise when that. Be sure not only to look for YouTubers in your specific field. I see this a lot when I'm talking to people, is that they go, okay, well, I looked at other AAC specialist YouTube videos, or I looked at other special ed teacher videos, or I looked at other, OT videos, or I looked at other SLP videos. But there are other professions that have been doing this as long or longer than yours. And that information can be so vital and so adaptable and fun. Maybe you want more tips on games or some cool tech tricks to add a little like magic to your sessions. Check out videos by teachers who've been teaching English overseas for the past couple of years. These people are amazing, and they share quick, fun activities, often with little prep, because their students are overseas. So it's not like they're making a packet for the family to pick up from the school or anything like that. And they are your middle of the night tow truck service, or your 5 minutes before class emergency phone a friend. Okay, so find a few ones that you really like, save them maybe in a playlist, and have them as your emergency backup plan. Maybe you're actually really techie and you want to really add some magic, some pizzazz, some interesting things to your sessions, especially to kind of hold that attention, which can be hard. I use the term getting our students into the sweet spot. And for me, that sweet spot is when they forget that there's a screen between us. When they are so engaged and so into the lesson, you can see it when suddenly the magic breaks and they're like, oh, right, whoa, I'm not actually sitting there with you. I'm not sitting there with Mrs. Smith. I'm here. But you have that magic moment where they hit the sweet spot and they're engaged and they're learning and they've forgotten about the distance and all the tech in between us. So if you're super techie and you want to add more, here's my pro tip. Check out actually online gamers. They have some really neat ideas on lighting and green screens and overlays and really cool advanced topics as well. And while you're out there looking around, it's important to look around and find a community. Find people who understand the strain, whose brains you can pick. Find people who know more and less than you. These people will save you. Okay, they'll troubleshoot with you. They'll offer fantastic ideas that they tried one week that then you can have in your back pocket to try next week. It is so important to remain connected and encouraged right now for not only our own mental health, but also for our professional development. So when you're finding your community, it really helps to know what you have to offer the community as much as what you need from the community. So again, this is one of those times to check that list. Look through your strengths. What strengths do you have to offer? What kind of things do you have to share? What are your strengths? So what kind of things are you looking from other people? They might offer some great tips, but if it doesn't line up with your strengths, as fun as that green screen activity looks, if that's not how you work, it's going to be more exhausting to use it than helpful. So, Tara, then where do we find a community? Well, for one, conferences like this one, which have great chat options and virtual meetups and ways to connect. In-person conferences, when they happen again, are a great way to build community and a way I've built huge parts of my community. And also social media, Facebook groups, Instagram, Twitter hashtags, even blogs out there. A lot of these people are happy to be part of a community, are happy to contribute to a community, and you can find the one that works for you, or ones, plural. And I like to mention, when finding experts, I want to encourage you to find a community across practices, just like we talked about with the YouTube videos. Work to create a community of people who don't just do exactly what you do. The term we use in the executive function world is the same, but different. For example, a cohort I'm a part of, which has been what I've needed, especially now, but across my professional life, this cohort has guidance counselors, psychologists, social workers, teachers, SLPs, business leaders. Finding that mix is what gives us a lot of perspective. When I only have a community of people who do the exact same thing as me, who have that exact same college degree as me, who see the exact same kind of clients as me, I kind of lose perspective. And in that, not always, but I could sometimes lose creativity as well. Sometimes online courses that you take also have a community you can become part of. So they either have like a private Facebook group or weekly office hours or something like that. And they can also have then people with mixed backgrounds and levels of experience. I've read a lot of books on just innovation. And one tip that just really sticks with me with innovation is that truly great innovation teams in the business world have diversity. And in today's world, we actually have a very narrow view of diversity. We see as diversity as relating to, race, sexual orientation, religion, pieces like that. But we can actually gender. We can broaden that perspective. All those pieces are absolutely important in our community. But see further. Does your community have people who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth versus people who grew up using state-funded services? Does your cohort, does your community of people supporting you have people who are not directly impacted maybe by special needs versus people who have a child or a sibling who had special needs? These also offer really important perspectives in our community. So see what your community has to offer and what perspective they're coming from, and that can really help you learn and grow as well professionally. All right, you have arrived. Now Google Maps actually tells me when I pull in, welcome home. We're gonna take a minute to talk about how you actually tackle the class. How do you tackle all the new platforms, new tech, new activities, new expectations, all of the new? Now, number one, most important, is to know your platform. Know your platform, know your platform, know your platform. Please know your platform. I don't care what platform you're using. Okay, that's not true. I actually have really strong opinions about platforms, but it's not for today's talk. But you have to be the expert on your platform. So please know your platform, okay? That sets you as the professional. When you know that platform inside and out, when a colleague, here's how you know your platform. If you know your platform, a colleague can call you on the phone and say, I can't figure out how to do Liberty Gibbet in Google Meet. If you can answer that question without opening Google Meet and Zoom, GoToMeeting, WebEx, whatever you use, if you can answer that question without opening it, you can say, okay, hit the green box at the bottom. When it pops up the menu, one of the options is going to say, click that. You know your platform. Know your platform. When your student is having trouble on the other side and you can talk them through, or talk the parent, or talk the support person on the other end through the problem, you know your platform. First and foremost, I don't care if you have no other activities. If you know your platform, you've now established yourself as the professional, as the person guiding the lesson session or therapy moment. Know your platform. Okay, after that, start broad. I tell people start on the super highway. When you're learning these new resources, start learning materials that can be used with any student. Any student. Okay, find the ones that you can adapt to anything. Now, think about your therapy closet. Okay, I've got mine, one of mine right here behind me. Okay, think about your therapy closet. We always, or your class closet, or whichever, however you term the storage space. Okay, we all have those activities in there that we can pull out and use for anything. For me, it was always Candyland and Uno. No matter what happened, if all the other plans blew up in my face, I could pull out one of those and we could work on whatever our goals were, whatever the lesson was, while playing Uno, playing Go Fish, playing Candyland. So start broad when learning your materials, that find things that can be used with any of your clients, things that have quick customization options or things that are just extremely general, well-known, okay? Now, here's the second rule. Stick to 3 new things. At this conference, you are probably going to get a ton of ideas. You probably have had a bunch already thrown at you since March. Pick 3 broad resources and know them well. Not like, okay, I know it's an option. I've got ABC. Yeah, I've got Ultimate SAP. I got this in the background. Pick your 3 broad resources. Know them well. When you're picking these 3, I know, Tara, you're starting to sound like a broken record. When you know these 3, focus on your strengths list when picking these 3, okay? Don't learn all the games when you are not a game player. When playing games with a student or client, like, kills a piece of you inside every time you have to do it. Don't waste your 3 on learning 3 game sites or platforms, okay? Don't learn Google Slides and pick that as one of your 3 if you truly dislike making slides for sharing information. Okay, use those strengths and find 3 broad activities that line up with what really invigorates you. That doesn't make you sit on Monday evening going, oh, gotta plan the class tomorrow. Should probably make some more slides. Just don't do that to yourself. We don't need it. You got enough out against you right now. You don't need to be against you. Okay, so find those strengths and then be like, okay, what am I going to be on Monday night? Be like, ooh, I should throw together a lesson picks bingo card for them real quick, because that fills your bucket and it doesn't exhaust you to do that. Okay, now next, once you've got those 3, okay, once you know your platform, broken record Tara, know your platform, and you have your 3 things that you are good at. Okay, 3 that you know well. Begin adding 1 tool or resource, one at a time. 1, post a wish list of here's all the things I want to learn and check them off, but learn 1 at a time. Choose one that intersects with ones that you're already using. So look at your 3 and find ones that intersect with those 3. So maybe Google Slides was one of your top 3. Maybe you really enjoy building these slides and this content, either make class books or lessons or therapy notebooks or whatever in Google Slides. Then check out either Pear Deck or Nearpod, since they have great plugins, work similarly, and go together. So find things that intersect. Do you use playingcards.io like every week to do activities with your students? Great. Then try adding in papergames.io too, and try a few of those games as well. Slowly build your material collection. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon when it comes to learning all these new things, okay? Trust me, it is much better, less stressful, and more professional to be good at a few things rather than mediocre in a million. This is not a race to know who knows all the best resources first on the team. This is a race of who's got good resources and uses them well on the team. Then, and only then, focus in and have really specific materials for really specific needs or students. We are all going to have that student who loves Yoshi or Sonic the Hedgehog. We're all going to have that student who's super into subway systems in New York. So when we are really good at all those other resources, we'll be able to plug in more of those specific needs. Or, maybe we've got a student who's has some AAC needs, but also has fluency. So I need some fluency specific boom cards, things like that. we'll have those resources in our back pocket. We'll have them in that desk drawer we can pull out at a moment's notice kind of thing. But first, work your way to this point, because otherwise you will have so many resources, you won't be able to remember all of them. You won't remember where they were found. You remember seeing it that one time, but you can't find it. Okay. And as a small side note, don't forget about your great physical materials. I'm not talking just digital here, but we often need to adapt our physical materials to use on telepractice. So while you might be good at that physical material, you also need to get good at that adaptation. Maybe I'm a big proponent of having 2 webcams at all time. I always have 2 webcams up on my computer. One always faces me, but the other one actually hangs on the top of my screen, but it faces down. So therefore, I've got my entire workspace on my desk in front of me. And that is where I can present things like a book. I've got a lot of physical books I just love, and I don't have them in a digital format. A game, cards, a deck of cards, a whiteboard to scribble on. I had to get really good at switching to a second camera to show what I'm presenting on my desk. Maybe I've got a 2-sided game, something they can play on their end and I can play on my end. Well, learning how to do that, how to teach those directions and how to be smooth with that, it's important. Get good at that adaptation. Maybe I'm using a physical game board, or I'm using a physical image to do a game board, but then I also need to be using digital dice or a digital spinner. Get good at that adaptation. Okay. And just because it's a material you've used, maybe you've used it a million times, maybe you've used it at least twice a week, every week for the 30 years that you've been doing this, doesn't mean it will necessarily be smooth or easy in this medium. Now, please hear me out. I did not say it's impossible. You will almost never hear me say that when it comes to virtual world, because technology is always growing, always changing, and things that we once thought were impossible are completely possible now. So notice I didn't say it's impossible to take this material and use it. It's just a learning curve. Just as much as I think this has given us a lot of perspective. All of us kind of being thrust into this world that I've been in for almost 10 years now. But many of us have been thrust into this virtual world at this point, and it's been a steep learning curve, and it's been exhausting at times, and it's been painful at times. And there's been days where we just don't want to log on again because it's exhausting. Well, it's given us good perspective, hasn't it, for our students and our clients, and how exhausting it can be every day for them, and how some days they're just tired, and maybe they just don't want to that day. So we're all on a learning curve. So give yourself grace. Take a deep breath, but don't cut out that closet of physical materials behind you. All right. Whoa, wait, Tara. You just gave us all this information, and now you want us to make a U-turn and turn around and go back? No, not what I mean. I mean that we need to take a hard look at whether or not we need to take a U-turn from the current course that 2020 has set you on. This year, this experience, this transition has had many of us running at 100 miles per hour for a very long time. I have personally heard from professionals saying they're working 12, 14, even 16-hour days, up to 7 days a week. I've heard people working all weekend just to try and be ready by Monday again, which really means that many of us just feel like this. We are running around with our hair on fire, chanting the motto of 2020. This is fine. I am fine. Everything is fine. Newsflash, folks, it's not. It isn't. Instead, 2020 is leaving many of us feeling like this, at least. And at worst, we're headed for some serious trouble. And no, I don't mean jail. Some of us might actually welcome some solitary confinement right about now. I'm talking about destroying our health, ruining relationships, hurting our families, breaking down friendships, putting us on a track to look as ways to get out of our profession. It's, in a lot of ways, it's stealing our joy. So I want you to take a moment and look in the rearview mirror. Now, for some of us, just a short road behind us from where we started to where we are now. For others of us, it's a very long road. We might need to squint a little to look all the way back to where we started. Okay? But do you remember when we first started? Maybe slightly scared, feeling like suddenly we knew nothing, but also we felt like $1,000,000. We were going to change the world. We were going to make an impact, and we were going to look good doing it. And suddenly, we feel a little like a lemon. Now, it may have started before 2020. We can't all blame everything on 2020 all the time. But I can assure you, 2020 hasn't helped. Now, I don't have all the answers. As my coworkers and I used to joke, the crystal balls are out of stock and the magic wands are on back order. But I do have 2 areas that I do want to mention, areas to look at when we're feeling like we've gone from sports car to lemon status. First, boundaries. 1, do you have them? 2, have you kept them? And 3, do you need some new ones? Okay. My number 1 tip in this virtual world is watch your time. Or as we say in the executive functioning world, set yourself some time markers. When will you respond to emails? When will you not respond to emails? When will you start work? And when will you end? Yes, this virtual world life sometimes means longer hours than before, but working until 10 p.m. every night, 7 nights a week, isn't healthy. Checking emails all weekend. Nope, not healthy. So set some alarms on your phone and stick to them. Start claiming some time for you, for your family, for your health, for your happiness too in this world. For example, I work on Thursdays and Fridays with my telepractice specific clients directly. Now, my clients know, unless it is an emergency, and they say that in the subject line, they aren't hearing back from me until Thursday or Friday. That's a boundary I had to set for myself. For example, last night I was in another meeting. I was wrapping up, getting ready for today, giving this presentation, and I did get an email that said, emergency. And I know, okay, this client doesn't abuse this. And sure enough, I ended up on a 20-minute phone call, a crisis at home, talking down a client who had just kind of had a moment where it was all just too hard right now. And 2020 just wasn't fair. And he was right. He was entirely right. But my clients know. And they respect that because I've had the talk with them of, hey, like I only respond to emails on these days. If it's an emergency, you let me know. But please don't abuse that, because that's what makes me fresh and ready to help you all on Thursdays and Fridays. And they respect that. And that's important. Now, typically, those of us in this realm are people pleasers. So sometimes we need to ask for help on our own boundaries. So if you can take a good, honest look at yourself and be like, yeah, I'm going to tell myself to stop working at 5 and I'm going to work until 8:30 and just eat dinner at my desk, then ask for help. Ask for help on those boundaries. So get a friend or a family member who will call you after closing time to make sure you are signing off. It's a great time to get in those phone calls. Maybe you've got a best friend from college you don't get to see anymore. Well, her job is on Thursdays to call you at 5 p.m. your time, and you guys talk after you've signed off for the evening. And my second tip, Return to your strengths. I know, broken record Tara, return to your strengths. Find ways to work in your strengths as much as possible. Research tells us when we work utilizing our strengths, it actually takes less energy than working within our weaknesses. So every time you're planning your week, laying out your sessions, learning new tips and tricks, hold it up to your list of strengths and take a minute and think, will this use my strengths? Okay, I just threw a lot at you. I realize that. So I'm going to do a quick review of it all, kind of quick summary of everything we just covered, the big highlight, big bullet points, okay? So take a deep breath, sit back, another sip, the coffee or tea or hot chocolate or chai or whatever you're enjoying this morning might still be hot. So take a couple more sips, process, and be ready, okay? Have your questions ready, and I will jump into those questions as soon as I get done with this quick review. Okay. All right. We hear a lot of can'ts, But remember, we are actually only limited by the laws, your professional code of ethics, and your own ingenuity. So shut the door on those can'ts right now. And as long as you've decided it's legal and it's ethical, be willing to daring to give it a try. Be willing to see what the possibilities might be. Okay, choose your route, not Sally's route, not Janet's route, not Tom's route. Choose your route. Your telepractice, your virtual learning route does not need to look the same as everyone else's. Identify your strengths, respect them, and try to work within them. It's not always possible. We have to use those weaknesses sometimes, but make sure that the balance leans towards strengths so it utilizes less energy. When you work within your strengths, that's when you can combat the fatigue and the burnout. We all need help at one time or another. Every single one of us. Yes, I've been in this 10 years. Guess what? I still need help. Okay? So keep learning. Keep being willing to be like, you know what? I don't know everything. What else can I learn about this? What more can I know? And it's so important to find a community of people who will share ideas and help you when you're stuck. Find them in person, at conferences like this, on social media, etc. There is a ton of new content out there that you can tackle for your online classes, lessons, and sessions, okay? Start broad. Start learning material that can be used with any of your students or clients right off the bat, okay? Then that's when we begin adding in one tool or resource that intersects with the one you already use, okay? Make them intersect. Otherwise, you've got about 20 highways you've got to pick one of. If you've got all these intersecting roads, then you can start down the broad road and you can bring in another one when you need it. Trust me, it makes navigation of this way easier when you've got those connections. And don't forget about your great physical materials. They'll need adapted, but they are not obsolete, okay? And take a hard look and decide if you need to make a U-turn somewhere, okay? First, set those boundaries. Again, do you have them? Have you kept them? And do you need new ones? And second tip, return to your strengths. Find ways to work within your strengths as much as possible. What you are doing right now is so important. It is so needed. Our students and our clients, they need us. They need to continue to see us. Even as the world is changing, we get to be the steady. But make sure that you've made that U-turn, that you've set up those boundaries, that you're working on your strengths, that you can be the steady. So you can be the calm in their storm right now. So that you can be there for them because you've taken the time to take care of you too. I'm going to leave this up for a split second in case anyone needs it, anyone needs to reach out, anyone wants to find me. So take a screenshot, scribble it down. A lot of it's also available in my bio on the Whova as well. And you can send me messages on the Whova as well. I'll keep an eye out on it for the next couple of days. But I'm going to stop screen share and then I am open to take any questions. and you can say them. I believe people can unmute. I don't really know how the Zoom is set up, but you could also type them if you have questions. I've got the chat up. I saw a question, where I'm from in Illinois. I am from Champaign-Urbana, home of University of Illinois, the Fighting Illini. Huge fan and a huge proud of my cornfield upbringing. And no, this is my only actual session here at the conference. It's just keynote and opening this up for all of you. So. Thank you guys. Trust me, the compliments over here, it's sometimes hard to talk to a bunch of names on a black screen. So the comments have definitely been so appreciated throughout this session, kind of keeping a corner eye on there to keep going and keep focusing when you're talking to a screen of black boxes. So I very much appreciate it. So, and again, like I said, if you don't have any questions now, you can absolutely send me a message on the Whova or shoot me an email, and I am happy to answer any of the questions. Oh, that's a great question. Where do I see telepractice heading in the next decade? I'm trying to be very optimistic in this presentation. Telepractice was on a powerful track prior to 2020. We still had a couple states here in the United States that had made telepractice, especially for SLPs, illegal. And we still had a couple states that were hanging on to that. New Jersey, Delaware, a few others. Then laws were changing. Florida did it for a while, and then they went back to allowing it, things like that. And we were on a really good track. 2020, I think, brought to light a lot of our limitations. A lot of great folks out there have made humongous changes to help us. Two companies I work really directly with are Lesson Picks and Reading with TLC. Both of them really, I mean, they reached out to me in March, the beginning of March, as soon as everything happened, saying, how can we support people? How can we help people? And they've always been very supportive, and they've known what I've done. Oh, Story Grammar Marker as well, Mind Being Concepts. And so they've really reached out, and they've really made huge adaptations. My concern is that the amount of people who weren't given training, there really wasn't a lot of time in March. We all believed it was going to be 2 weeks, but even heading into this school year, how many people just didn't receive training for a variety of reasons? Either the school district didn't find somebody, or they didn't even realize it was available. Like I tell people all the time, sometimes it's empowering just to tell people what to Google so they even know that options are out there for all these courses and trainings and stuff. And I feel I fear, and I talk with a lot of people, like the head of our SIG at ASHA for telepractice, et cetera. Her and I have been having conversations lately, and there's a slight fear that we're heading into a bit of a dark ages. I think a lot of hands are going to get slapped. I think a lot of laws are going to come down on us and make it a lot harder for virtual learning, for telepractice. I think it's a variety of pieces that have come into that. But I'm hoping that this has brought enough light and enough people who are passionate now about this model and see how much it's needed, especially in situations like this, that I'm really hoping that we see more things like interstate compacts, speech language pathologists directly. We have to hold a license where we sit at the time of the session and where the student sits at the time of the session, regardless of home address, residency, et cetera. And that inhibits us from actually seeing clients, especially if we work anywhere near state lines or things like that. So I'm really hoping that this is going to light a fire to really open up more doors for us to be able to reach more students. As I said, I work internationally, so being able to help students internationally, being able to help students. I think tech is making a big shift. I think a lot of pages, like Lesson Picks, like I mentioned, and their digital playing tools. Reading with TLC has come out with a ton of digital materials, as well as Story Grammar Marker. A lot of SLPs are creating YouTube channels all around just doing modeling how to pronounce a sound, so that when we're wearing masks in person, we can show that sound. So I'm hoping the good outweighs the bad in this. And I'm hoping that the technology keeps moving in a way to make this more and more accessible to more and more people. So that is my answer to that question. I think I saw another one come in, but I'm trying to find it. Just a second. Oh, I think I saw one that's my favorite game to play. So I really like Ultimate SLP. Even if you're not an SLP, I really like Ultimate SLP. It is a subscription site, but it's just a variety of like guess who games, what's wrong with the picture games, board games. You can add a deck in if you want. Like she's got a bunch of preset decks in that she's created there, or I almost never use the decks, but it's really great. It's got interactive spinner and you can move the pieces along the route. That's if I can share cursor control, or if I have a student who doesn't mind not having that cursor control and just like seeing their piece move. But I like that one if you use a platform that allows cursor control share. When it comes to, I also really, really like lesson picks, the games that I can create and customize on lesson picks. And especially with their new interactive playing tools, so you can make spinners, you can make dice, you can make drawing cards, all those pieces. So I really like those. I like putting them into Google PowerPoint. And then if I have a student who I can't share cursor control with, here's a pro tip. If I have so Lesson Picks now has it built in so that when you create a material, you can send it straight to PowerPoint. Well, then I upload that PowerPoint and convert it into a Google Slides. So then I can send the share link to a student. Now, disclaimer, you cannot take control back in this situation. So do it with students you trust. But I send them the share link in Google Slides so that we can work on there together. And then I'm in control of the spinner or on my end or using any of the Lesson Picks tools that's actually on the webpage. So those are some of my absolute favorite games. And like I mentioned, I like playing cards and paper games. Those are both .not.com, they're .io. I like both of those a lot because I can send a share link so they can play the games on their own from their own computer too, which even if you have cursor share, when you do cursor share and screen share, it takes a lot of bandwidth. So if you don't have great internet or the client doesn't have great internet, those games are great because you can send them the links and then you're not impacting the bandwidth by doing the screen share and the cursor share and all those pieces. So you can play independently on both sides that way as well, while still talking through and having full video screen of the session to work with your students and clients. Yeah, here, let me type it in. I'll put it in the chat box for everybody. I got asked if I could say the name of those games again. So it's playingcards.io is the one site. And then, oops, sorry, accidentally privately sent that. I didn't see a private message sitting there. So it's playing cards, and then it's also papergames.io. Those are things like checkers, memory, go fish. I think there's chess as well, crazy eights, but it also has like Battleship. Paper Games has Battleship, and I think Connect 4. It's got a couple other games as well, but they're games that have the share link built in. So when you start the game, it pops up and says, send this link. So then I just send it in the chat box of whatever platform I'm using, and then we can both play from our individual computers. So that's a big reward at the end of a class or lesson or session for my students. So. Oh, Kristen, that's a really good question. So she says, I've struggled with the transition to 100% virtual. What has made you grow to love it over the years? One, getting confident, knowing my platform inside and out. Two, I like having pizzazz and magic. So I am constantly motivated to be watching the YouTube videos, to be taking the classes, to find cool new ways to do things and to then be able to try them out. So that's the second one. Three, that strengths piece. I know, broken record, but really learning my strengths. There's a really great assessment out there. Okay, I guess that should have been in my financial disclosure. Technically, I'm certified to give it, but I'm not trying to sell you, but it's called Emergenetics, and it actually has some fantastic research on validity and reliability on it. And it really helps you lay out your strengths, both in your thinking preferences and in your behavioral preferences, and then really working to work within those strengths. And then my boundaries. I really didn't like it when I had no boundaries. And I realized that that wasn't my client's fault. That wasn't the virtual's fault. That was my fault, that I was checking email all the time. I was responding to emails all the time, that I was working all the time. And when I really just set those boundaries and realized that some things were just going to go undone. Some emails just weren't going to get replied to in the most timely of manners because I had to set those boundaries for me, that I've learned that having that balance has really helped me love it more. Now, do I love it every single day, all day? No, there are definitely nights where I'm like, oh, it's Thursday. I'm tired. Tonight will be a long night. Friday nights are my specifically long night because that's Saturday morning for Asia. So I work super late into the night on Friday nights, but it helps to know that I've set up a balance that works for me and works for my family. So yes, thank you. It is. It's ultimateslp.com. Again, it's a subscription site, but you can get like a free trial on it to give it a try. But like I said, it's got really well animated guess who games and find what's wrong with this picture frame games and board games with lots of different themes and stuff. So I use it for work. I also use it I run 2 homeschool cooperatives in our area that support homeschool families, especially those with kids with special needs. So I use it in that as well. And then my children actually capitalize on it, and they use some of my subscriptions to those games and stuff when playing with their cousins on since they didn't get to go visit them. So I know we've got like about 3 more minutes. Like I said, you can absolutely message me on Whova. I'm open to any more questions in these last 3 minutes that you might have, or send me an email. Like I said, you probably will only get replies to my emails on Thursdays and Fridays. So if you don't get it right away, but also if you still send me an email and don't get it right away, please know that I get lots of emails. So please do not feel bad about sending me another email and being like, hey, I sent you an email 2 weeks ago. Did you get it? Please don't feel bad about that. I sometimes need that. Things get lost in my ever-growing box. So how many platforms do I use? Ooh, good question. So I use one platform primarily. I have become very good having a training course on telepractice at a variety of platforms. Why? I also know multiple platforms for another reason. Overseas, especially in Asia, they have, like here in Colorado, we have like ski season, which is when we get our snow in the mountains. In Asia, they have typhoon season. So most of their internet is not actually like hardwired laid into the ground. Most of my clients get their internet via satellite, especially if they live out on the islands anywhere in Japan or Philippines or a place like that. So when typhoon season hits, sometimes I have to switch to the platform that will take the absolute least amount of bandwidth to ensure that we can actually have a session where we can talk. That means I also have to forego some of the tools that I consider extremely important or even necessary at times for really good virtual learning and telepractice. But yeah, so I know I use at least 2 platforms, one high bandwidth, one extremely low bare bones bandwidth for typhoon season. But I typically use one, but I become well-versed in many, having to train and like school districts buy my courses for their therapists so that they can continue to access the videos and use them, because it's about 10 hours of content generally. And so I have different courses for that, so I can have different, because as we know, lots of different school districts, some have said no Zoom, some have said yes Zoom, some whole states can't use Zoom, some use Google Meet, some use WebEx. So I can customize that, and so that people have access to all those different platforms depending on what they're allowed to use for which school district they're contracted with, or some families might just not be comfortable with the use of some platforms, etc. So okay. All right. I know it is 9 o'clock. I can take any last minute question if there needs to be, but I also want to respect all your time because I know there's a ton of other great sessions to go to. And if there are already breaks scheduled, I know those are highly loved and coveted for refilling the beverages and restroom runs and a snack, or even just standing up and looking away from.
So all of our next block is starting at 11 right now. So okay. We'll got to wrap it up.
Yes, that was my fear. So no, it's okay. So like I said, you can absolutely reach out to me via messages or shoot me an email or anything like that. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Tara. That was wonderful.
Sure thing.
Thank you.